Welcome to Horse Racing Radar TV for horse racing today. A big weekend of racing globally. Of course, we have in the United States already running today the Kentucky Oaks card through 4 races, I think. The 5th one, the first of the stakes races, is loading right now. So we'll see how that one goes out. Newmarket, we have the Guineas. Thomas, we have a little bit of a preview of a couple of the international horses running in the Derby, maybe a few thoughts on a couple that have 1 or 2 starts here in the United States, not pure international types, but on the grass nonetheless. Maybe they have something to say in their races. Tom, we'll start with a little bit of the Oaks Derby international horses to watch. So I know you started with the Kentucky Derby and pretty much went there with the 2 Japanese horses. A few other we'll touch on as well. But of the 2 Japanese horses that are in the Derby, you have Admire Daytona and Luxor Cafe. I mean, the 2 have squared up. Is there any question in your mind which one's better?
Well, on the face of it, Luxor Cafe is the better horse. But he's won 4 races as the favorite. He beat Amar Daytona. Last race was 1 mile and an eighth, and he won by 5 lengths. I mean, you can't ask for much better than that. But his breeding is all American, by American Pharaoh, and the offspring of American Pharaoh on the turf have won at the classic distances. But you go look at the dirt side, and nothing over 1 mile. Really, and there are no classic winners at this point in time on the dirt. One thing to note about in Japan, the dirt races are kind of there, but they don't have any group or graded. So it's hard to tell really what kind of company both these horses have been facing when they've raced in Japan. Because we can't get a real measure in terms of the level. So you got to go on what they've been able to do. And, on the Luxor Cafe, he on the dam side, she was a great she was not a great turf runner, but she was a good turf runner. She won stakes races. I mean, she ran a group race. So, I mean, but her, what she's produced is mainly turf horses, and they're all graded. The top ones are Cafe Pharaoh, who won $1.5 million in Japan. Regal Glory and Night Prowler. But it looks like better turf than dirt at this point in time. So I think I gotta say I'm not interested in that horse.
You're not interested in the horse. I have a little bit of a different take on that one. I do think that when you look at Admire Daytona, when they did face up at first against Luxor Cafe, it was a shorter race and missed by a nose. Second time out, a little bit longer, got smoked. Last time out, a wire-to-wire win in a Group 2 in May Day. And for a Derby, looking at this card, Tom, I don't know how you feel about the Kentucky Derby, but normally, the 20-horse field, now down to 19 after a couple scratches, there's just loaded with speed. It looks to me like they're looking at the last 3 years, all of them coming from off the pace. There's really, aside from the 2 inside horses, there's not a lot of what I would say, just flat-out burners in there. But I do think with that 6th draw, with those 2 horses a little bit to its inside with some speed, Admire Daytona's got to be careful not to get caught wide and then stuck and then a really wide trip all the way around the track. As far as Luxor Cafe is concerned, as I look through the past performances, I think this might be the 4 horse on the card for the entire weekend that has the best chance to win. So when you look at it, at 1 mile and an eighth, both of those races were just absolute demolitions of fields of 11 and 16. You're going to get a big field today, so no question the horse doesn't mind other horses around it. I think getting that extra 1/8 of a mile with the American Pharaoh, that he has the bloodlines to win. Maybe he doesn't on dirt, but the bloodlines are there, no question by him at all. And if that horse is remotely close, as they're heading down that Kentucky Derby stretch with that extra yardage, seeing how he smoked everybody at 1 mile and an eighth by at least 5 lengths, I think the distance actually getting more is actually to his benefit. Got a couple of other foreign horses, not really, as you mentioned, Tom, before we got cracking in here, that there were.
We should talk about a little more on Admire Daytona, basically because we got to look at the bloodlines on this one too. And, he's by Defrong, who was a Breeders' Cup winner sprinter. But when you dig into the breeding a little bit, he was by Gioponte. Now, Gioponte was a top turf horse, ran second in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Of course, dirt. And if you dig a little deeper in that one, you get Go Sapper, Shackelford, Sunday Silence, Maple Jinsky. So you get a mixture of sprinters and classic winners. Again, he's a champion sprinter, but he's producing horses that run a mile and a quarter. And so on both sides of the breeding, there's a lot of stamina there. So I think in looking at the post position it's drawn, I think tactically it can tuck in and be able to close. Now, yeah, only won by, a nose, a neck, whatever you want to call it, in its last race. But certainly in the back, if anything out of that race, it gets out of the race, it's something you have to think about, and just based on the breeding, because there's a lot of more stamina, I think, than Luxor Cafe has in terms of the breeding side.
Probably pretty true. There's a couple of other horses. I went for a few that had maybe 1 or 2 American races, because sometimes one is not enough. So in race 5 coming up, the Distaff Turf Mile at Churchill in just a few minutes. Serene Serpa, that one does have some decent breeding, though I don't think that the English races were against company that compares to what it's going to get today in just about 20-25 minutes. And even over in England, when she's faced lighter company stakes or handicapping type rated races, struggled there too. Does have a little bit of late speed, so maybe for a price at the end. Thomas, any disagreement with that thought process there?
Well, you should get a price, because frankly, it has not faced top company, and that's really a good measure if they're facing some of the best, or even that little second tier. They're usually good enough to do well here, but this one hasn't really run against that kind of company.
No, not at all. Race 7 today is the Turf Sprint, probably the most. I think the international horse that's going to get the most backing will be Rogue Lightning. I think it's got a shot to win, Thomas. Last time out, the Shakerton, the Grade 2, had the lead late, gave it up. That's a measure of heart sometimes, in my opinion, Thomas, like a horse that feels like it's not deserving a win. And the last time the horse made a second start, came off the bench pretty sharp, and then bombed in the second start. So I see a couple yellow flags for that one. I think we'll take on some money and maybe provide some false hope, or do you think that one's got a shot to cross the finish line first?
I think it has a shot. I think a lot of it had to do, it got lazy in the front. When it made the lead, it's looking around for, somebody coming at it. And the jockey didn't keep his, to finish the race. And these are short, as the sprint races, you blink and they're over. You got to keep the horse going. And I just don't think he kept him going.
Is that one today or tomorrow? The Turf Sprint? I think that was tomorrow, right?
I thought it was tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm all mixed up because I put the wrong. I got mixed up with the Guineas races for Friday and Saturday and Sunday. All right, so that
you wanted to confuse yourself. You did a good job.
Well, yeah. We'll have the predictor to help straighten some of that out a little bit.
That's why we got the predictor. Yes.
Yes. Race 9 tomorrow. We got the American Turf Stakes, New Century. I had a couple of races here in the U.S. Then went back and it has returned after a 1-race hiatus. Then getting an extra 16th mile here helps. Did in one of its wins, got a Grade 1 win at Woodbine. Although I wonder, Thomas, and maybe you feel the same way, is a Grade 1 ranking at Woodbine. I know the system is probably the same North American, but is it the same kind of quality races that you get in a Grade 1 here in the States?
Well, in Woodbine, I would say if it attracts the foreign interests, including from the U.S., you'd have to put it up in the same category, because they're, you're not going to spend the money and ship the horse over there for a group or Grade 1 race and want to lose. So you're looking for some black type for a reason. And I think it really depends on the field they faced. Faced a decent field, Would I call it the top? No, I would not call it a top field, but it was a good field.
And the one thing I noticed too about New Century, I do think getting the extra distance does help a little bit.
Yeah.
But for an English
Flat
horse,
track and running on the flat track
could help too, yeah. But I feel like when you look at most of these English horses, when they come over to the United States, the one thing that they all have, because their running styles are a bit different over there, they're kind of lazy out of the gate and they all rush home. Around here, it's the other way around. We rush out of the gate and they get lazy as we move towards the wire because we're all out of gas from sprinting as fast as we can. But when you look at the late pace numbers for that horse, it's a little on the light side for something coming in from overseas where they do tend to dash to the finish line. So I wonder if that one's going to hang again late and just get run by some other horses with maybe a little more late speed.
Well, again, it's when the longer races start in England went at the 3 furlong mark. Left to go. Ours start right at the beginning of the.
As soon as the guy presses the buzzer.
Yeah. Our races are, can be won or lost right there, and it's certainly the case in England too. If they don't get out of the gate cleanly or have some issues, and no horse is going to overcome anything serious.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, they're a really good horse. I just think that again, I don't think it's faced good enough field.
I agree.
And if it was a little lighter, I'd say, okay, I got to consider it. But I think it needs, my personal is to pass on the horse.
So now we're going to move off to our typical 4 and Friday, but this is not a typical 4 and Friday. We got some really good stuff going on at Newmarket. We're going to start on Saturday. This is where I got confused. In race number 4, the Palace House Stakes. It'll be at approximately 9:55 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. So before, probably in line. I imagine all the Derby stuff is going to probably start around the same time with 14 races on the card. The first one, as I mentioned, that we're going to talk is the Hong Kong Jockey Club Whirlpool Palace House Stakes. It is a Group 3 effort. This race, Thomas, is going to go 5 furlongs on that Newmarket track, which I don't know quite what to make of this shape here, but it doesn't really much matter because they're going to do all the running down here. Going to just run on this undulation, then a downhill, then an uphill run. Tom, will they split the seas? They're going to run straight?
No, they're going to. This field should race right in the middle. The gate's going to be set in the middle. Also, I don't see this because of the type of race. This 5 furlong race, I think they'll go right down the middle.
And I must note that right now the going is considered good. And if we look at the weather for Saturday and Sunday, there is no or very little precipitation in the forecast. So I'd expect that track rating will remain the same. So we look at this first race we're going to do for 4 and Friday, the Palace House Stakes. Thomas, who will kick off with a W?
Well, I'm going to also say at the beginning of this is that this is a good betting race. I don't see anybody run, at even money in this race. So if you got the winner, you're doing a good job. And I'm going to start with number 3. No Half Measures is my top choice. She returns to the race after a good 3-year-old season. I mean, she ran 11 times. She won 6 of them. 4 were on the turf and 2 were on the all-weather. She's won at both distance of 6 and 5 furlongs, so it's pretty good. She's won on the very soft. She's run on the good and firm runs, so she seems to be versatile. Her last race was at Longchamp in a Group 1. She ran 5th, and frankly, it was very soft, and she didn't have much of a chance in that race. That was a true Group 1 bunch. Ryan Moore won on her at Newbury before. That was 2 races back, and that was a Group 3 race, and that was on the heavy going at 5 furlongs. She's your favorite type of horse, Rich.
All or nothing.
All or nothing.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to go all in at this level. I think that this horse has got the ability, and I think going forward, she can easily step up in company if she does well here today. I'm going to go to number 5, 7's Questions is my next choice. Last season, she came back from Dubai, and she ran in a Group 3. She ran in a group races with 3 of them. She won 1 over a decent field, and then she ran and that included Grade 1 winners. But she was a complete bust in her next 3 races. I mean, she was awful. This time around, no Dubai. Going to put her right into a 5 furlong race, and if she's ready, she can pop. And she's done it before. The bigger question is she back to her old self, or maybe that 3-year-old to 4-year-old transition is the key, maturity. They obviously, put her away and didn't try to do Maydam this year or anything like that. They just held her out for this race. And I think at 12-1, you got to look at it. And you can see the odds have gone all over the place.
Yeah, they have. But they're rising, though. It's
not necessarily good, but I'm also not looking for her to win.
Yeah, I don't care about the odds. I prefer to bet against the public, really.
Yeah. Finally, I'm going to take number 8, Beautiful Diamond. Initially, this one was one of the favorites in the race, but she's now drifted a bit. She finished the end of the season in a listed race at Ascot, and she ran second. Her other races she faced Group 1 and 2 company, and she's losing to Bradsell, Believing, Markarova. Those are pretty good horses, and that's all. Those are all 3 of them are Group 1 winners. So dropping to a Group 3, maybe that's the key to see if she's still interested and wants to run. I mean, she's 4-2, so transitioning from that 3 to 4, we'll see what happens.
I am going to start off with, if I remember correctly, maybe I misread it, but I think 7 Questions is the defending champ, Thomas.
Yes, she is.
So you know what they say in boxing, right? In big boxing cards this weekend, boy, there's fights tonight in the middle of Times Square, which is kind of cool. Just a ring in the middle of the avenues of America. And then but they say you got to beat the champ to beat a champ, Thomas. So let's see if 7 Questions can answer the question in double up. I'm going to go with Washington Heights as my next choice. This one's pretty much holding firm odds-wise, maybe rising a little bit. This one's been pretty decent at Newmarket, 4 times out, to win a couple of seconds in that mix. But what I like about this horse versus a lot of other horses in this field that are kind of coming up in class, Washington Heights has run against Group Company 7 races in a row. This will make it 8. So the quality of competition, no big deal. Beautiful Diamond, next on my list, Thomas. I like that one as well. This one is run at 5 furlongs. These short sprints 9 times, finished in the money in 7 of them, and usually fares pretty well after a little bit of rest like today. The one horse I wanted to rate a little bit higher, but I couldn't, although last year's champ was a 3-year-old, Tropical Storm. It is a 3-year-old versus older horses. It's middle of the year, so it's not as bad if it were like, say, January, February, or March. But nonetheless, the 4- and 5-year-olds are much more mature than a 3-year-old. But if this horse can beat an older group, Tom, it might actually prove to be something.
Well, you picked 7 Questions, and she was a 3-year-old last year and won this race. So I think for me, the difference is the distance. I think if you've got a true sprinter, I don't think the age necessarily is a determinant, and they be interesting. But more interesting is, what will the predictors say?
The predictor says it's going to be a close race to the wire. Bam! Washington Heights, Beautiful Diamond, Twilight Calls, one that we didn't mention, Clarendon House, another one we didn't mention, Rumstar, 7 Questions. So I think I just plagiarized the predictor because I'm sick and tired of the predictor beating I beat the predictor. All right, so next up on our list of things on Saturday is the Guineas. I think I got that right finally. After how many years, Thomas?
1 or 2.
Yeah, a few. I think I've mispronounced it a number of times. But anyhow, this one is 1 mile. I was thinking I better look at that Swiss Army knife thing to figure out if they're in the July course, they're in this course. But you know what? They're just going to run straight again, Thomas. They're going to go up and down and up and down. And then they're going to run down and then they're going to run up. How much does stamina matter when they're running straight up and down in this race?
It makes a difference, but we look at our classic races and what are our distances? Really, mile and a quarter. Yeah, I mean, they're always. It's interesting to note that one mile is considered a classic distance for this, and so Well, the turf, yeah, you can throw that in there, but it's something to consider that how good a true miler is, especially over there versus the milers that we have here.
Especially since here in the States, you got some tracks where a mile is 2 turns, other tracks where a mile is 1 turn. So it's completely different running styles, right? Because a 1-turn mile acts touch more like a sprint than a route because you don't have to make those 2 turns. So fitness probably not as important. Whereas you're making those 2 turns, better make sure that horse is fit so it can not fan out coming around the corners there.
Yeah, if you lose 3 or 4 lengths, that may be the difference in winning and losing.
Yeah, 1,000%, no doubt about it. Cousin Rich and Uncle Tom, Barry Knight, how are you today? So in the Guineas, the 2,000 Guineas, not the 1,000, because this one's worth twice as
1,000's on Sunday.
Yes, indeed. But in this particular case, Thomas, who's going to take home the 2,000 trophy?
I start with number 8, Shadow of Light, as my top choice. I think William Buick picked the wrong horse again. He's done it. James Doyle took the other horse and won the Guineas. And I think he did it. I think this one's the better horse of the two. And, this horse has lost just once by 3/4 of a length. That's it. Final race of the season was at Newmarket. And 7 furlongs, Group 1, won by a neck. Yeah, good. Likes the good going, likes the soft going. They're bringing in top jockey from France. Why would you do that? Mikel Barcelona is right up there with the probably the top 3 in France. But, this is Godolphin. They have a few bucks.
Yeah, they have a few more than this show gets. So if Godolphin, if you're interested in supporting us with your loose change, let us know.
Yeah, we'll be happy to take a few bucks.
Yeah, $1 here, $1 there.
Yeah. Number 10, Wimbledon Hawkeye is going to be my next choice. This horse could win, but it's just as good to put up a good fight for 2nd or 3rd. It's won twice, finished 2nd twice, finished 3rd twice. And how many races does it run? 6 times. That's pretty good.
Yes,
got 1 run this season. Ran 2nd to Field of Gold, who should go off as the favorite in this race. But based on that record, and every time this horse is trying, at least the races I've been watching in, and I haven't seen them all of the races, but I've seen a couple of them, and one I dismissed the horse saying, it's not going to do anything, and it ran 2nd. That was my mistake. I'm not going to make that again.
Yeah, usually that's what happens to me too. I badmouth the horse and just says, what do you think about this?
Yeah, finally I'm going to take Expanded, I should say. Number 2 is my final choice. It has 2 starts. It's got a win and a 2nd. The 2nd was to Shadow of Light. Yeah, look at the odds. Look at the team that's riding and training. Okay, it's a lightly raced horse. They must think they've got something. Because why put it in here? You could run it somewhere else. Yeah, it's a bit of a dice roll, but 6-1. How many times did you get 6-1 on an Aidan O'Brien horse?
Not too often. Well, I think you and I have all different horses because you didn't mention Field of Gold in your picks, right?
No, I did not.
So I'm going to go with number 6, Scorchy Champ. I think that's how they Scorthy, whatever. Scorthy Champ. This horse missed the break, Thomas, in his 2nd career start, and still almost won the race. If he doesn't miss the break, he's undefeated in 3. And I'd like to, especially in these European races, I do it somewhat in our races too, but race shape matters a little bit. When I look at the final times compared to Field of Gold or any other horse, they're right on par right there, Thomas. So if he doesn't miss the break, I think he's got the ability to take the trip into the winner's enclosure. Field of Gold, that one is going to be your favorite, Thomas. It is my 2nd choice in there. Unbeaten in 2 races at Newmarket, so it doesn't mind the undulations, doesn't mind running downhill, doesn't mind running uphill. And the last time, one of the times he won at Newmarket was in a 2nd start after a layoff, and today is a 2nd start after a layoff.
Yeah, but you should know one thing. This is one race that the Gosden John Gosden has never won.
That's why I put him second.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know that, but hey,
Yeah.
sometimes things just happen by good happenstance.
Absolutely.
Ruling Court is next for me. One big when he wins, Thomas. Always getting the backers of bettors, punters over on that side of the world. The only thing for me is the only time he ran the group company, he failed. But William Buick, you mentioned, he got off the 8 to stay on the 5. It's a 50-50 head, toss of a coin. You say he made the wrong decision. This time it came up on tails. He made the right decision. We'll know when it's all said and done. And then finally, I'm going to go with Green Impact, a little bit of a long shot in here. This one is a neck away from being undefeated in 3 races. The only one he didn't win was the debut. So that's the question. But any improvement on the final times that this horse showed before going off to the break could be good enough to run by them all when it matters, when they take the photo. Let's see if the predictor is more in line with your line of thinking or my line of thinking, Thomas. I think he's going to put Field of Gold as the winner. And then what comes after that will be, somebody's going to win by a lot. Field of Gold. Then you got Wimbledon Hawkeye, Shadow of Light. Those are your horses. So it looks like he's thinking more in line with you than me. Except for you don't have Field of Gold, but you left out the obvious choice there, I suppose. All right, Tom, before we move on to Sunday's card, it's important to note there's a whole lot going on in the United States. It's already starting. The Kentucky Oaks card today, of course, over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet. We have all of the picks. We're off to a pretty good start. Just missed the winner, that 7 horse in race number 4. But if you used our smart sheets, Thomas, the thing that we've been working on forever around here, you will see that in race number 4 today, the 7 horse that did go on to win. Let me make this so we can actually read it. This is a little bit too bloated right now. In race number 4, if you take a look at it, and there's instructions on how to use this. You can get it over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet, link in the description below, as I mentioned. Make sure you use that. But the 7 horse, the one that upset us a little bit in there, Beauty Reigns was the top comfort zone horse by a huge margin. So that indicated that this horse should get a race that fits its running style almost perfectly. And guess what? It fit its running style almost perfectly, and it did win. So
it was perfect.
Exactly. Yes, it was an 87%, 86% chance it would be perfect. So we got the wagering guide. The first stakes race is in the book. I think we had the trifecta. Ice, stinking cold, if not pretty close. We had the winner there. So a lot of racing left to go today and tomorrow. All of that available over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet. When the show is over, head on over to horseracingtoday.net. Right there in the front, we will post probably tomorrow. Later on tonight, it'll show up. So I got some stuff to do this afternoon. But it'll be right here. You click on that. You will have a race replay along with all of our notes from Thomas and I for both the international flavor horses as well as the Newmarket races for Saturday and Sunday. And while you're there, kindly click on the HRT gear. Get yourself a Horse Racing Today t-shirt for the weekend. You can customize it. If you don't like the blue combination, maybe you go light blue. Maybe you look better in light blue. Maybe you look better in tan. I don't know, but you can make it however you want it. And for the next couple of days, you get 20% off everything. Fantastic way to support the show, particularly if we bring home some winners on Saturday, which will bring us to Sunday now, Thomas, over in Newmarket in England. Again, the weather forecast remains good. Short field for this one, Thomas, only 5 horses. So odds are, just statistically speaking, we have a 20% chance to pick the winner on a good track. They're going to run a mile in 1 furlong in this start, Tom. So 1 mile and 1 furlong. They're going to be back here at the very end of this, and they're going to run up and down those hills. They'll frolic for a little while. Then they'll hit that downhill, and then the last 300 meters, as you mentioned, Thomas, they'll turn up the jets. They'll get going. This longer race, will closers or front runners, which way do you think you'll be leaning in this 5-horse field?
Jockey's race.
Jockey's race. All right.
5-horse field, decent horses. I think you got to, who's riding and what tactically do they think is the best way to ride this race.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I'm going to take number 1. Beautiful Love is my top choice. I like the long shots in fields like these.
Yes, indeed.
Because, you get a pretty good combination of rider and trainer for one. And she's been spending her time over in the States for the most part. She ran in the Gulfstream. She ran at Del Mar. That was in the Breeders' Cup. She ran it out Aqueduct, and she won at Aqueduct. And she ran Saratoga. She ran a grade 3 at Aqueduct and in an 11 furlong race and won that fairly comfortably. First, she does have a race this season. That was on their Pegasus Day. And she ran 6th. I would say it was respectable. I think this is a paceless race.
Agreed.
And I think that it benefits her. And let's face it, it's a Godolphin. It's gotten Ryan Moore. He's won 1 or 2 races in his life. Don't see any reason why he can't pull this one off. Number 4, Running Lion, is going to be my next choice. This one will be the favorite. I would be surprised if it isn't. Something went wrong in its July race. It lost by 40 lengths.
Took the day off.
Yeah, big time. And I did look it up, and it was lame in one of its legs. So they came back though in the same a few months later at Longchamp, and she ran 2nd to Friendly Soul. That was a good effort for her. Again, her pattern has been she needs a race and then she performs well. That's why I put her 2nd. I think she is going to need a race. But that being said, she's now 5. She could be special. Maybe again, it goes with these mares. Sometimes they need to be a little older to actually get their running figured out. But I still think she needs a race. Number 3, El Marcal. Okay, it's going to be my final choice. She's good at running 4th. She's done it at Royal Ascot. She did it at Goodwood. She did it at Newmarket in her last 3 races. She did win in May, and she beat a very good horse in Porta Fortuna, and that was at Newmarket in a Group 1 race. And she gets the same jockey today as won that race last time around. I think that helps. And second choice, initially a lot of the line was to have her as the favorite. I think it's going to be between the 3 and the 4, and for favoritism.
Well, right now it does look like the 4 has got that one. There's 5 horses in this field, Thomas, and interestingly, between the 2 of us, we picked all of them. I'm going to go with Cinderella's Dream as my top pick. This horse has won 6 of its 9 races. That's a pretty good win ratio in there. But what I think I like about this horse is it shows some really strong late speed. I think the way these horses will run in these short fields, maybe one will try to get out and get away. Or I think more likely they're going to try to temper the tone and all dash to the finish line. If it becomes a dash to the finish line, I think Cinderella's Dream has the most dash to the finish line. Running Lion, you pointed out, Tom, there's not a whole lot of speed in this one. And if they do kind of mush around the track or whoosh down the straight line, it's not around the track over there, then I think Running Lion could dictate the pace from start to finish and just really never really see the backside of another horse, but without really getting too far away. And then Secret Satire was the longest shot on the board. He's been taken over by Beautiful Love, but maybe by post time that will change. But I remember when we have on Stephen Fielder, the guy who wins a ton of horse racing handicapping contests. It's a handicapping tidbit of advice that I've hung on to. It says, hey, in 5-horse fields, you got to take the longest shot on the board. Well, before the race started, in the morning line odds, Secret Satire was the longest shot on the board. I think he's got a chance to be a little forward too. So could get a pace that fits him. So I'm going to make that my 3rd choice. That way we've touched every single horse, not by design, Tom, by chance. And the predictor will have nothing to do with the 1 and 5 in my prediction. Although with only 5 horses, they will show up. Maybe not. Bam! Running Lion. The 4-horse. Yes, the 4-horse is your winner. Cinderella's Dream. And then Malika, Beautiful Love, and Secret Satire. So hopefully the predictor does influence the odds by post time, and we'll see Secret Satire being the longest shot on the board. One last race. This one is the half guineas, only 1,000 Guineas Stakes, another Group 1. They're going to be running a mile on the Newmarket course. We've talked about the undulations and then downhill, then uphill. Thomas, so the only thing left to talk about is who we think will win the last race on Sunday for Foreign Friday this week.
I'm going to start with number 2, Desert Flower. We've got 4 undefeated horses in this race. This is one of, I actually picked them all the undefeated horses in my picks. I left one out. But that's all right. She's run 3 of her 4 wins have been at Newmarket. She must like Newmarket. Something's either that or Charlie Appleby prefers her on Newmarket.
Mm-hmm.
She won her last race. It was a Group 1 by over 5 lengths. That's pretty good. I haven't raced her since, so this is obviously the target for Buick Appleby and Godolphin. And she's one of those horses that's going to sit close to the pace and then pounce on it at about 2 furlongs to go, and she could easily just keep going. She's already won twice at this distance. So,
You think any of these horses are candidates for November?
Oh yeah,
meaning the Breeders' Cup. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Breeders' Cup. Oh yeah, I think so. I think you very likely see 1 or 2 starters out of here, depending on, of course, health. 4, El Watine is going to be my next choice. Big odds, but it's undefeated. It's only started once. It was on the all-weather. It was this going was standard to slow. It was a Kempton. Big went off as a huge favorite. Won by a length. Not bad. Now, looking at who owns it, it's Shadwell. Trainer Saeed bin Sior has won a few major races in his life and usually knows how to put them. The breeding just screams miler. Absolutely. So the distance is perfect. She's entered in the Coronation at Royal Ascot too. So they have eyes for bigger things beyond just the Guineas.
I hope so.
And that's certainly a good race. And if you like those odds, you're getting some decent odds.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I'm going to take number 7, Lake Victoria, as my final selection. She is, guess what? Also undefeated.
Yes.
Her last race was in the Breeders' Cup, 2-turn 1 mile race. And she won fairly easily, and she was a huge favorite that day.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly understandable. She's won 3 Group 1s. Their 1 was at Newmarket. She's ready for that mile test. The only concern is I did with City of Troy when he ran in the 2000 Guineas. He wasn't ready to run. I felt he wasn't ready to run, and he didn't run. Of course, he came back, won the Epsom Derby the next time out. But, so some concern that she didn't get some foundation before she's running. But we'll see. Again, it's more O'Brien. But I did look at her breeding. I was just curious. She's bred to be a miler, yes, but one of her siblings won at 2 miles. And then one even longer. And that he's a jumper. So they run more than 2 miles in those jump races. So maybe mile is just not long enough.
Maybe there can be a jumper.
Maturing. Maybe it's those next races that they're going to be more interested in.
I'm going to go a little bit different direction. I'm going to go with Duty First with Holly Doyle and Archie Watson as my first selection. I'm going to take a crack at the 2 horses I think are the obvious choices, Desert Flower and Lady Victoria. But last time out, this horse came off the bench, ran 7 furlongs, Tom, in a minute, 23.4 seconds. That's pretty fast.
Nothing in the breeding has won over 7 furlongs in that horse. And
there's always got to be a first.
That one is, that's what got me a little nervous. And why I had to take a pass. I'd rather take Hey Boo, who I think's got more upside, who ran second in that race.
Well, you funny you bring that up. But I still think 123 and 4 is pretty quick, no matter where they're running. And the only other time this horse made it 2 races in a row, the second start, the horse built big time off of the first up. So that same built off that first up. Maybe it'd be the first, Tom, to go a mile and take home the dub. Then Desert Flower, that's going to be your obvious choice. As you mentioned, Tom, this horse has not lost. Big favorite, rightly so, 4 races, and not a damn one of them has been close. Just made easy work, as Floyd Mayweather might say. Lake Victoria, the 7 horse is my third selection in here. Ryan Moore, Aidan O'Brien. Can't beat that. Maybe 3-1. Maybe those odds can drift up a little higher if Desert Flower takes on a ton more money. But what's good about this horse is that it's run twice at Newmarket, captured the flag in both of them, but it's 5 for 5 in the winners and closures. So no matter where it has run, it's won. So it's a horse so far for every course. And then finally,
handled the 2 turns at Del Mar.
You mentioned Hey Boo. Well, you know what? That managed to get to my 4th pick, Thomas, because I mentioned 123 and 4 is pretty fast, no matter what. Well, this horse finished second behind that one. So that had to be pretty damn fast, too. It was only 3 lengths, so about a half of a second slower than what Duty First put up in there. And that was the first time that horse ran on turf. So maybe the second time around on the grass, the horse might say, you know what? This is my preferred course.
And the breeding says on that one, longer. It wants longer than 7.
And so are the odds, 66-1. So I'm not hoping. I mean, if that one wins, it'll make for a great end to the weekend. Hopefully, it's a great set Friday with the Oaks card. Again, we're off to a fast start over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet. Hopefully, we can stay that way right on through the Kentucky Derby and the 2 races to get everybody out of the parking lot this afternoon and tomorrow. Speaking of which, what's the horse name? Good Cheer, right? That's the one running in the Oaks this afternoon, the big favorite. It's undefeated, bunch of easy wins. You think it stays undefeated, Thomas?
Well, who owns it?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I've done so much horse racing work over the last couple of days, Thomas.
That's another Godolphin. They may have a very big weekend.
I have way too much stuff floating around in my head right now, to be honest.
I understand.
All right, the last thing for today for you and me is, of course, the predictor. The predictor says, bang, Simmering. Whoa, neither one of us mentioned that horse, Thomas. And Hey Boo is up there along with Duty First.
We're going to look at Simmering's odds.
50-1. How about that, Thomas? The favorite doesn't even make he's at the tail of the field there, Desert Flower. So look at that Duty First and Hey Boo. They're right there. Maybe I got a feeling, Tom, that just based upon this, that there's a heavy slant towards recency bias with the predictor, considering how fast that last race was for both Duty First and Hey Boo.
It's got to be factored into this.
It looks to me.
Got some coming off layoffs. So, and these are just 3-year-olds. So
you just never know.
You never know what you're going to get with a 3-year-old from that transition from 2 to 3.
Well, our experience has been in the States that those sparkling 2-year-olds kind of falter a little bit as 3-year-olds, and the 2-year-olds that kind of, they show they have some talent, they come into their own as 3-year-olds and beyond.
Yeah, but we got a couple champion 2-year-old, one in particular running in the Derby this year. So, I mean, you got to think the slant. Yeah, you got to think the slant is heavily towards Bob Baffert. He wants his bit of revenge. You know what
I'm sure he does. And he scratched one, though, right? He scratched Rodriguez, so he's only got one left.
Only got one left, but all you need is one.
Citizen Bull. And I think, based upon looking at again, I don't think the Derby is loaded with a bunch of front-end speed. I don't know. When was the last time a rail horse won, though? It's probably been a long time.
Yeah, I'd have to look on my chart. No, I can do it real quick.
But I think Citizen Bull actually has a chance, Thomas. If it can get away, if you can see an opening half with Citizen Bull, and it's probably unlikely, but somewhere around 48 seconds, I think it'll have the wherewithal to make it to the finish line towards the front. And if it's anything like 48 and a half or 49, which it won't be, but in the odd event it is, the horses that get to the front can be very difficult to run down, because when you look at journalism and you look at all of the others, which is why I think that Luxor Cafe's got a good shot, Tom, because I think he sits 5th or 6th, and he's got as good a long legs as anybody else when they come home. So maybe save ground, save some time, and then just outrun a field full of closers to the finish line.
You want the numbers on post one?
Probably 0.
Well, let me get you. The winning percentage is 8.5%.
That's not bad.
In the money is 19%.
That's
The
bad.
average finish is 8th.
Well, that's not
the
so
last winner was
good. Before I was born. I don't know.
Bill Shoemaker was riding.
Oh my Lord! It might have been before I was born.
No, not that bad. 1986.
Oof! I was 2 years out of high school.
Ferdinand. Last time in the money was looking at Lee. He ran second in 2007. And the last top 5 finishers was 2023, and that was Hit Show. Well, guess what Hit Show did the other not too long ago?
Did he win?
He went to Dubai.
Oh, yeah. So maybe Citizen Bull's ready to go. I just hope if he wins, he doesn't test positive, Thomas.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate.
Yes, that would be.
Oh yeah, if you're looking at that one post, that's not probably your first choice. But guess what? Number 5 is one of the top. That's one of the higher ones. The last winner was Always Dreaming. So,
well, 20 horse fields. You figure each one, just randomly speaking, has a 5% chance to win. So anything above 5% is a little bit of an alpha angle. So maybe the one horse has a little bit better chance than most. I especially think that the race does set up. The 2 horse to his outside is another burner. That's where the speed is with the 1 and the 2. I think the 2 is the one that goes out to the lead. Citizen Bull sits right behind him. And then we'll see what happens after that. If they go out in like 21 or under 20, like these other horses have done in years past, both of those horses will be long gone by the time the announcer is screaming as they come down the stretch. Yeah, and the one thing about this year, though, Thomas.
Okay, go ahead.
The Japanese owners know if they get interfered with after last year, they can file an objection.
Yeah, they did not know that.
Now
and yeah, but there is one post position that has never won. Do you know which one that is?
13.
17.
17. Well, that's who's leaving.
The last time it was in the money was in 1988, and that's
going to be
that was 49er. So that's been a few years.
So with the scratches now, that's going to be Sovereignty, right?
Yeah,
yeah, which is one of my favorites to win the race because I
think maybe he can break that.
Or maybe another scratch and he'll move to 16, or 2 scratches and he'll move to 15. But
no, you're looking for Rich Strike again.
No, I you know what the horse reminds me of a little bit? That would be the 21 horse. Was it Basie that would scratch in? But yeah. I think when you look at well, that horse is sort of like a Rich Strike because it did smoke everybody in its only race at Churchill Downs. I think it won by 5. But it kind of reminds me of Mage a little bit. It had kind of a windy trip in the Florida Derby. And just looking back at the key prep races, I mean, you can look over the last 10 years. And I think the quality of California horses with these shorter fields has dropped. I think that is evident when you see them face up against some of the better Midwest, the Kentucky and the East Coast, and then like the Florida Championship Series horses. They've really, a lot of them, even against low odds, have really faltered. But the races that really kind of bode well going into the Derby, at least recently, are the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby. So if you're looking for the key races, those would be the 2. I think they won 6 of the last 8. And if you toss out Authentic and the Haskell, which doesn't really count because it's not part of the normal circuit to get into the road to the Kentucky Derby, I think you got to look at those horses coming out of those key races. And the last 3 were won by closers. Prior to that, it was speed, 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 speed. Looks to me like the track speed is holding the first, yesterday and today at Churchill. We had on Matt Carruthers. He said for these big races, they soup them up. So maybe speed comes back, Thomas. Maybe closers come back. What do you think?
I prefer the closers in this type of race. And then the other is if we do get a little weather, there are a couple horses you got to think about moving up on that chart. And both the Japanese horses have run in the off surface and won.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they rank them differently though over there, because I was looking through the past performances and Luxor Cafe doesn't have a trip at all on a fast track. They're all considered off. And then when you look at the actual post positions, it doesn't show that the actual past performances, it doesn't register as off. So I'm not quite sure what their distinction is between fast and good, but it seems to me they're quick to downgrade the track over there, maybe a little quicker than we are.
Very possible. I have to look into that. I do not know.
All right, Thomas, next Friday, what's on tap for Foreign Friday?
Racing, horse racing.
Any idea where?
No, I didn't look. I was trying to get through this weekend because there's a lot of craziness.
Indeed. All right. Well, no matter where we are, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You see all of our social sites streaming, not screaming. That's me. Streaming across the bottom.
Well, that's
there,
you're screaming at the television.
Yeah, screaming at myself.
Your horse is still running.
Yeah, that would be the Derby, unfortunately. So you see horse race, the number 2 day, horse race today, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, all of the above. Right here, Horse Racing Radar TV. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button. Follow us, share our content, tell your friends about us, all your degenerate friends who like to bet horse racing as well. Let them know. Any final words of wisdom from you, Mr. Thomas, before we part?
Hopefully your bankroll will survive this weekend.
Well, one bit of advice I have for bankroll is to allocate your dollars. So today, if you have like a $400 budget, maybe $100 on Oaks Day, make all your bets before the races start. Just watch them so you don't overbet and cut into your bankroll for tomorrow. If you win, you have more money for tomorrow. Take out maybe some of your bankroll so you don't go home flat-footed, and then put all your bets in tomorrow morning for Derby Day, because I promise you, as the bigger races come, might be difficult as all those people are jamming up servers to get their bets in. You don't want to miss your bets. So put them in the morning, sit back, relax. You did the work, collect your tickets, and hope they win. Well, no matter what you're doing for the rest of this day, Thomas, whether you're betting on the Oaks, you're betting tomorrow on the Guineas, or Sunday on the Guineas, or tomorrow on the Derby, it's a big weekend of racing. We hope that no matter what you pick, no matter what you do, it's got God's grace, God's favor, and it ends up in both places, Thomas.
Absolutely. One is the winner's circle, and the other will be the winner's enclosure.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us. Make it a fantastic weekend.